Welcome back, hunters. In this video I'll go over my updated build for Title Update 2.5. With the addition of RNG talismans, static builds are gone. There's no one build anymore that's best, as it really depends on what the RNG gods bless you with. I'm not going into what talisman you should go for, as in my opinion it is based on your playstyle and the actual talisman you have. That's why I present you a build that doesn't rely on the talisman and allows you to easily change the build based on the talisman you get. It has the possibility to be the highest damaging build for the Insect Glaive, but also can be changed for more defensive style if you feel you need that for a specific monster. Looking at you, Core. So let's get into the build. This is a quite flexible build, allows you to change in and out whatever you need based on the talisman you get. So keep that in mind. Weapons. It hasn't really changed since launch, so basically you need to take the weapon or the element the monster is weak to, or what I mostly do, because to be honest sometimes I'm a little bit lazy, I use my perfect crafted paralysis weapon just to make sure that I get those paralysis procs off. But if you want to do maximum damage, you just want to have the element weapon which the monster is weakest to. Going into the reinforcement bonuses, 3 times attack boost and 2 times sharpness is still king, so get something close to that if you can. It will probably take you a few rolls, and so I only got the one on my paralysis weapon, which I'm fairly happy with. There is one exception for the weapon where I say you need to change the weapon, and that is the Fractal Glaive Portlagia if you're going for the 9-star Uduna. This weapon, especially when you're stacking a lot of thunder resistance, can do a lot of damage towards Uduna. So if you're going to specifically for that fight, I would recommend going for this weapon instead of a normal Insect Glaive Artian weapon. Let's quickly go into weapon decorations. So my decorations normally are critical jewel 3 and critical jewel 2 for that level 5 critical boost, which just adds so much overall. And of course the flight expert level 3, in total giving you critical boost level 5, increased damage dealt by critical hits by 40%, critical eye affinity plus 4%, and airborne jumping attack power plus 10%. This is my standard setup. Really depending on what RNG talisman give you, you might get airborne in your talisman and then you can swap it for something else. I would say for the longer fights, sharpness is getting a little bit of an issue, so I am also contemplating if I not need to go for more sharpness jewels to actually keep my sharpness up longer in those fights. There is also one other exception, and that is getting the Mind's Eye Jewel for when I am fighting Core Magala. So the Mind's Eye Jewel level 3 gives you 100% chance of your attacks not being deflected, 30% attack power against hard targets, and especially Core, this is really adds towards your damage much more than the other jewels, just because Core has those resistances. So that's my only change I make if I'm going up towards Core. So that's it for the weapon decorations. On towards the Kinsects. So for the Kinsects, I might have a different opinion than most people, but I would recommend everybody going with the Whisper Vesp, try it at least. Most people will say go for the Arc Maiden, but if you have played this weapon as long as I have, the Whisper Vesp really outclasses the Arc Maiden in one specific way. In most cases, I say that the Arc Maiden, which is really downside to the Arc Maiden, is the speed of the Arc Maiden. In some cases, you want to have the Kinsect return to you really quickly if you want to get these extracts really fast. And there is where the Whisper Vesp outshines. The Whisper Vesp is really fast. It's a fighter jet compared towards the Arc Maiden. It's really fast, so you can really shoot it out really quickly and recall it really quickly. And that's where really for me, the advantage comes in. It does really take a little bit of practice because you don't have all 3 extracts sometimes. If you really played a long time with the weapon, it doesn't really matter too much. Then the Whisper Vesp just outshines the Arc Maiden in my personal opinion. However, if you're more of a beginning player with the Insect Glaive, go for the Arc Maiden. Right, the Whisper Vesp is only for if you are a little bit more experienced with the weapon, more experienced with how getting your extracts with your Kinsect quickly, then I would say Whisper Vesp 100% my choice. Otherwise, stay with the Arc Maiden. So what makes this build shine? So before I go into the depth of the build, I want to make sure with the update of Title Update 2.5 as I call it, we have the new talismans. And the new talismans give you a wide variety of options really depending on what talisman you get. What makes this build, in my opinion, the best build for Insect Glaive is that the overall build gives you a lot of flexibility and it doesn't lean on the talisman itself. So really based on your RNG and what talisman you get, you can build around that. So it makes it a really flexible build which can take on any 9-star monster with enough defense capabilities and with a lot of offensive capabilities, and you just can build around that, which makes it really great, right? Really, you don't have to change constantly, you just have to change your resistances a little bit here and there depending on what monster you're fighting, but it just gives you so much flexibility, both in offense and in defense. So let's get into the build. The build itself is quite straightforward. We're starting with the Ray Sandhelm Y, Lagiacrus Mill B, and the Ray Sandbraces Y, and the Lagiacrus Coil B, ending with the Duna Wild Grease Y. All these pieces give you a lot of decoration options, which makes this the flexible build. So let's get into the decorations, and all these pieces give you a lot of different decoration options. So going in towards for the helm, I have the Challenger Jewel, just to make sure that I have one level of Agitator in here. On my chest, I've got the Mighty Jewel and the Jumping Jewel and the Thunderous Jewel. Here I have the Mighty Jewel for maximum might level 3, but the Jumping Jewel and the Thunderous Jewel really depending on what kind of monster you're finding. Jumping Jewel for me is something that I really like, but you can change it out. Thunderous is because I was finding Raid out, so I want to have some thunder resistance. Going on to the gloves, I have Tenderized Jewel and the Chain Jewel. And going towards the coil, I have 2 times earplugs. 2 times earplugs I like to run for some, especially for these 9-star monsters. I love to run 2 times earplugs, but you can also go with just 1 time earplugs and maybe doing another Jumping Jewel in there, Evasion Jewel, whatever your fancy is. And there I have a Thunderous Jewel for just that extra resistance. Going into the feet, I've got a Tenderized Jewel and 2 times protection. Looking at this build overall, it really gives you a lot of potential to change out jewels, really depending on what fight you're doing. You can have a lot of different options here. Do you want to change out a little bit less offensive, more defense because you're fighting a monster you're not comfortable with? Or do you want to have more offense because it's a monster you are really comfortable with and you don't get hit a lot? It really makes it easy to change out. Right, this build can really be the top highest damaging build with less defense, or you can cater it towards more defense. You never have to change out any of the armor pieces at all. So this makes this build great because based on your RNG for your talisman, you can build around this because there are so many different things you can do. If you have attack boost, you can change something out. If you're lucky and you get earplugs and for instance a burst, then you can change the Chain Jewel and you can remove another earplugs. There you really have the overall flexibility of this build, and it's really strong. So let's go with this build in general. This is mainly my build for tier 9 5-star raid down. And if we're looking at the overall build, we have critical boost level 5, critical eye level 1, airborne of course, jumping powder to get that 10% extra damage for our rising spiral slashes. I got weakness exploit level 5, and I've got agitator level 4 here. Really more an offensive build based on the monster I'm fighting. I can change this out for something else. For instance, you can actually put defense talisman in there if you want to have more defense, or you have a really good talisman you got and you can put that in there and you can play around. Maximum might level 3. We don't use airborne with Insect Glaive too much these days. Still something I want to change, but till then maximum might is something that really gives you extra damage. Evaded Stander is for me something that is actually a must in Insect Glaive play because you really want to have better evades, especially with some kind of monsters. Uduna is a really good example, just to be able to dodge everything you can. Also with the new Insect Glaive changes, having Evade Extender really helps you doing the backward fold, getting you to safe distance and not getting hit. Quick Sheet is just something that is helpful, and you get that from the boots, but it's something to add. Here, because I have the Divine Blessing for the 2 protection jewels in the boots, just for some extra protection, including some thunder resistance. Stamina Surge for a bit more recovery for my stamina, and Earplugs level 2, basically resistant to most of the roars. And we have the Burst level 1. Now, going into the set bonuses here, we got Raid Out Voltage, but we don't really have Latent Power, so that doesn't really work. But we do have Leviathan's Fury for the Iceshard Bolt 1. It's a little bit of extra damage, which is really good. Having the Uduna and the 2 Ray Dow pieces gives you Lord's Soul and Guts Tenacity, which is really good, especially as if you're learning these 9-star monsters, allows you to survive that lethal hit. Guts Tenacity is, I think, a really good overall extra skill on this build, especially if you're not as comfortable with these higher tier monsters. So, and that's my build. I think this is overall the best build you can make for an Insect Glaive, as it gives you so much flexibility, especially against these higher tier monsters. You can build the resistances around them, you can have your survivability, because Insect Glaive, if you like it or not, is a glass cannon. You don't have a lot in defense, so stacking a little bit defense is always a good thing instead of going all offense, right? If you're laying on the ground half of the time, you're not doing any damage, so just make sure you stack also these defensive bonuses, so just make sure you don't get carded whenever synergies hits you. So this is my build and my recommendations. I hope you like the build. Try it out and let me know what you think in the comments below. The RNG talismans, the way we view builds will be different, but it feels as a step in the right direction. I cannot wait what future updates will further bring to this game. If you find this helpful, drop a like and subscribe for more Monster Hunter Wilds content. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp, happy hunting.